Welcome to the show. You're back. Welcome back. You watch UAP Truth 33. I'm John. I'm your host. Today, we're going to break it down, man. We're going to get into it. I want to talk about all the old men, dude. All the old guys, right? That just before they passed or later in life, they decided to come out and speak about this subject. And I highly doubt it's a psyop. I highly doubt that all these old men, this is all just, sorry, my hat's all goofy right now. All this is just one big, from Philip Corso to Jesse Marcell, you know, David Jacobs, Robert Hastings, all these guys, right? Um, I think David Jacobs, I'm not sure. I might be confusing him with the other Jacobs. I think David Jacobs was the guy that studied abductions, but Harry Reid, Senator Harry Reid, Haim Eshed, one of the most fascinating of the old men that came out, Paul Hellyer, Canadian defense minister. Behind Eshed, for like 30 years, he's like the father of the Israeli space program and a general and all this accolades out the wazoo. And, he made some astonishing claims. I did an episode about him, talking about the United States and Israel are in contact with these beings. Uh, he refers to it as a galactic federation, which I found kind of strange. Made me think of like a Star Wars or Star Trek or something. But apparently, from what he says, these are like the um, almost like a United Nations of um, I guess extraterrestrials, right? So that is just fascinating. I think he's like 91 right now. I think he was born in like 1933. And I'm just doing this all off the top of my head. So if I get any of this wrong on the details, I might be off by a year or two or something. Please don't come for me in the comments. But uh, I feel like Haim is shed out of all of them. I mean, Philip Corso made some really explosive claims about non-human intelligence, aliens, but that was in what 1997. The book The Day After Roswell came out. And for those of you who don't know Philip Corso, he was the head of the Foreign Technology Division at the Pentagon. He was a colonel in the Army, and he dealt with Roswell and the back engineering programs of these craft. He saw extraterrestrial bodies. He thought they were children at first because they were so such they were small, and that's wild, right? And then Jesse Marcell, he was the guy. I don't know if you guys ever like researched Roswell, but he was the guy. So they put out a, a press release saying that they had a disc, right? That they had recovered a crashed disc. Then the following day they retracted that statement, and then they had Jesse Marcell pose for these photographs with like tinfoil and sticks, and it was then it became the weather balloon story, right? And so Jesse Marcell, that happened, and he came out in what I guess it was the early '80s. He was by then he was an old man, and he told his story. He did an interview. He told his story, man. That yeah, man, it was a UFO. There was bodies. Just a really crazy story. And then you get into like Mac Brazel. He was like I think he was a farmer or something. Maybe I'm not sure. There was a couple different people that came out from Roswell that made some pretty explosive claims about that crash retrieval. And, when you look at the big picture of this, right? So, you got these skeptics, these people that just, uh, they just don't want to believe, And look, it's not my job to convince anybody. I really don't care. But I just feel like if you research the subject, if you just look into it, just look into the history, you know what I'm saying? Like with Blue Book, J. Allen Hynek, right? So he was hired on at Blue Book, and his job was to discredit cases and sightings and dispel rumors, and that was his job with Blue Book, right? And then in the end, he realized that this was actually a real phenomenon, that this was actually going on, and it was true. That it wasn't just people seeing things. It wasn't swamp gas and all that. He took a lot of heat for that one. There was a case in Michigan where people saw a UFO, and it was like a whole bunch of witnesses, And so Blue Book had to go investigate. This is back in I guess the '60s or maybe the '50s. I'm not sure, but and J. Allen Hynek, it was his job to debunk. He was kind of like the Sean Kirkpatrick of his day, I guess. And he said it was swamp gas. And man, did he take a lot of heat for that. People were very pissed, man. And not only that, but politicians got involved. There was a lot of he caught a lot of flack for that. And then later in life, he came out and he said, this is an actual phenomenon. This is real, you know. So you look at these men, like what would they gain from lying, at the end of their life, Um, like okay, I'm 48, for instance, right? And with age, you kind of grow a little bit wiser, you know, and you're more likely to admit wrongs that you've done, or you're more likely to admit things that maybe you didn't want to look at in the past. And I feel like, and I don't want to overgeneralize it and say everybody's like that, but I feel like the majority of people, when they get older in age and they gain some experience, they want to be honest, they want to be truthful, they want to carry themselves with a little bit of honor. You know what I'm saying? And I think that is what we were seeing, with these men, the Harry Reid, Senator Harry Reid, Haim, Eshed, Philip Corso, Defense Minister Paul Hellyer from Canada, uh, you know, Jesse Marcell, you know, um, I mean, I could just keep rolling the names off. I could sit here literally for about a half hour and just keep rolling names off of men who came out later in life and told the truth. Harold Malmgren, my gosh, if you guys haven't seen that interview with Jesse Michaels and Harold Malmgren, please stop watching this and go watch that, because that interview, he really he lays it out there, you know. Not only that, but there's these other guys that aren't as well known, that came out and spoke about this, Gordon Cooper, astronaut, walked on the moon, right? Edgar Mitchell, you know, another astronaut, walked on the moon. And you know, they came out. Gordon Cooper actually chased UFOs at one time. He was well, he didn't chase them. He was a test pilot, and I guess he was testing the U-2 spy plane or something. He was like, it was like a high altitude plane, and he said that the plane that he was in, he was at basically the highest altitude that we could go without entering space, right? So he's in this plane and he sees the UFOs way above, you know, and he knew that there's no aircraft that can go up there, and he's looking at them. Not only that, but they're anomalous, they're saucers. So, and then he's seen them land on a salt bed at a military base. Now, I think it's Edwards. I think it was Edwards military. I think it was Edwards Air Force Base. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it was. And he's seen a UFO land, and as they approached it, it took off and flew again. So you look at these cases, you look at these men, right? So are all these guys lying? You know, all you got to do is the research. You know what I mean? Look it up. Not only that, but then you look at all the footage that's coming out now. with the advancements in technology and our ability to film, and our ability to upload it into the internet, and then people like me put it on my channel. So it's coming out. There's no, of course, there's still these elements inside the intelligence agencies and government that are trying to obfuscate and trying to discredit and sling mud and throw shade and create these bot farms to troll UFO individuals, whistleblowers, and stuff on X. And not only that, but you have a lot of infighting inside the UFO community, and I believe this is engineered. These things are happening for a reason. You know, and these elements inside the government that don't want to let this go, that don't want to have to release this technology that they've gained, they don't want to have to share the knowledge they've gained, that are really trying to keep this thing secret, they sit back and they're laughing about it. And it's really a shame, and you look at like Chris Bledsoe's situation, how people have really come for him lately and really have been just straight up attacking him, trolling, calling him names, calling his family names, his children, just really ugly, because one thing I'll say about the Bledsoes is they're good people, right? And it's not like I don't know them personally, but you could just tell by the way that they carry themselves, the way they speak, you know, um, you know, I just feel that there's a genuineness there. They're having an experience. Now granted, they say certain people are saying that, they're surrounded by shady elements of people, former and current government officials, but that doesn't reflect on them. You know, yeah, they're being studied. Chris Bledsoe is being studied by NASA, the Vatican. Yeah, he has people around him, right? That have befriended him. Look, I'm not gonna sit here and try to like lie to you and say that his persona has taken on almost like a messianic slant to it. They say he healed his dog. They say he healed a child that was sick. They say he was healed. You know, um, that's even tough for me to swallow, right? But I'm not going to sit here and call them names and sling mud at these people. It's a shame. It really is, man. Like, especially in a community that needs to be united, right? You don't have to call people out every chance you get, right? Like Stephen Greer, and you got these people that are kind of polarizing. They make these claims that are really, really far out. That's really tough for people to swallow. But let's not forget, it wasn't too long ago that CE5 and psionics was too far out and hard to swallow, and it still is for a lot of people. You know, um, but it's a phenomenon, right? There's something there. It has to do with consciousness. There's something. There's connection. I honestly believe that this phenomena is connected to spirituality, consciousness, things of this nature. Does that make me a wacko? Does that make me a kook? Maybe. Who cares, right? I'm not really interested in what people's opinions are, and hopefully Chris Bledsoe doesn't either. I don't know. He probably couldn't care less. He's probably making some money off his book. He's probably doing well, but it doesn't make it right. Still, it's ugly. And I just hope that someday we can rise above that. And I feel like this Twitter space is just toxic. You got these people that just they could just type whatever they want. They could just say whatever they want. There's no repercussions. Meanwhile, if we was face to face, I guarantee you wouldn't say that shit. You know what I mean? 'Cause I smack the shit out of you. Straight up. You know what I mean? I would. I would, no doubt. Like certain things, I'm just a man, and certain things I'm not gonna. You ain't gonna just be just disrespecting the shit out of me and not have to suffer no consequence. It's just the way it is, you know. But when they're in their mother's fucking basement hiding behind a keyboard, they can get away with these things. And it's a shame. It really is. Um, and I want to move past that whole vibration, that whole negativity, just move past it. And, you know, it's not good for anybody, and we're close. This is it's a reality for some of us, and for others, they're still waiting for the government to tell them. And I just think that it's a fool's errand. I think that now, I mean, it's probably going to happen, but by the time it happens, we're already going to know. It's kind of like JFK. When they had the hearings and all those people came out and they said all these things about magic bullets and these people testified before Representative Anna Paulina Luna's uh, you know oversight committee. You know, it was obvious. Maybe it wasn't an oversight committee; it might have been something else, but it had to do with JFK, right? And it came out that yeah, okay, there was definitely more than one shooter. There was definitely a conspiracy because there had to be a conspiracy for there to be more than one shooter. So, and let's not forget that's where the term conspiracy theorist came out, right? They made this a derogatory term so that anybody that questioned the narrative is a conspiracy theorist. And this is a way to discredit, slander. It's almost like calling you a vulgar name. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. And then what, 50, 60 years later, it turns out we were right, you know? And we're moving towards a time when these secrets are going to be laid bare. They're no longer going to be able to hide the awful things that they did to keep this a secret and keep a lot of other things secret. Um, we're coming to a day and age where I believe people are evolving consciously. I think that it's kind of like moving up to the next level. And with AI, with quantum computing, and these are big issues with the government: quantum computing, AI, and UAPs. Those three subjects have the government quivering in their boots, man. They're really afraid of those three subjects. Now, why? I guess anybody's guess. We could probably research it and figure it out. But quantum computing, AI, UAPs, those three subjects, the government is really, they got think tanks. They got people trying to figure it out. What can we do? How can we, do damage control before this blows up on us? And it's going to blow up. We're getting to a day and age when, like I said, all secrets are going to be laid bare. And I believe that reality itself, all points in space and time are connected. So all the things that you think you did in the dark and you don't think anybody's going to find out about, they're going to find out. Just the nature of the reality we live in today. We're very, very close to that. Everything you do is recorded. And I know this sounds kind of woo woo to some people, but, you know, we're close. So yeah, that's just I wanted to kick the bobo with you guys, man. Just shoot the shit, talk about whistleblowers, talk to you about the POSs on UFO Twitter that are you know like to sling mud at people. Uh, and if any of you guys, I mean, listen, I go on there. You know, I'm not insulting any of you. Unless you're the type that likes to troll people and and do these ugly things, then yes, I am talking. But I don't think people that watch me are on that type of time, that are into that type of thing, you know. And if you are, maybe I said something that'll make you rethink, you know, your actions, And I'm not trying to, I'm no better than anybody. I'm not, you know, I just think the UFO community has enough to deal with our opposition, and the people that are trying to keep this subject in the dark, and the people that are trying to keep us infighting, and the people that are feeding us a bunch of disinformation and have these disinformation agents out there. And, you know, um, we have enough to deal with alone without having to deal with these petty things with each other. Okay, so, if Chris Bledsoe did a sky watch and a plane flew by and they thought it was a UFO. All right, cool, man. Big deal. He made a mistake, whatever. How many times has he produced orbs? How many times have anomalous things showed up during these sky watches? So I can give him a pass on a plane. I don't care. Of course, Mick West is going to, shout from the rooftops and, post 50 freaking times about a plane, and it's just, what a joke, man. And then, listen, let's keep it positive, man. I love you guys. Thank you to all my new subscribers, man. Really, seriously, I really appreciate you guys. I just wanted to put this quick video out. I think I've been talking for like a half hour. If you're still with me, please hit the like and subscribe. Share it to a friend. Share it to two friends, and I'll be back tomorrow. Peace.